Oh, excellent. Welcome everyone to the Family Care Program Workshop sponsored by the Autism Alliance. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Allison Pagel, and I am one of the co-directors, and I'm joined by my colleague Pam McKillop, co-director, and Kathy Parkett, autism specialist. Kathy, you can show yourself. There she is. She's our autism. Happy to have her joining us tonight. We would like to thank you all for joining us. I'm so excited to see so many familiar faces. Tonight's speaker is our very own wonderful, awesome Beth Gutierrez, Program Director for the Advocates Adult Family Care Program. This workshop is scheduled from 6:30 to 7:30 tonight. And Beth will be walking us through the eligibility requirements and what this program could provide to your family. With that being said, I'm so excited and happy to turn it over to Beth.
Perfect. Thank you, Allison. And thank you all for letting me come and kind of share about our program. I'm happy to answer any questions and anything like that. I have a PowerPoint that I'll go through just so you can kind of read through as we go along, but I'll talk and share a little bit more too. But as Allison said, please feel free to ask questions as we go. It's a pretty detailed program and a lot of like minute little things. So I'm really happy to want to be here and just get to meet you all and explain what we do and how I can maybe assist, or if there's other questions or things that maybe come up. I'm really happy to do that. And so thank you for the platform. And I just to give a little bit of a background about myself too. So I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker by trade. I've been with Advocates for about 11 years, and I've been in the AFC program this whole time too. So as a case manager, supervisor, trainer, and now program director. So kind of, hopefully I know a little bit and hopefully I can answer questions, but happy to kind of walk you through that too. And I must give a little caveat too. My PowerPoint has some animation in it that I might not understand when it's going to pop up. So if I go a little fast or jump, just bear with me in my animations. We tried to make it a little fun, but
I love it. That's
we'll
awesome.
see. So hopefully you guys can all see my screen. Are we good to go?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. So we're just going to dive right in. Feel free to join the conversation. So at Advocates, we call our program the Adult Family Care Program, but you may have heard it at the state called Adult Foster Care. So that's our technical term through the state. So if you hear someone say adult foster care, adult family care, it is one and the same program. Foster care just doesn't seem to always fit what we do. So we like to switch it up a little bit. But part of our Advocates program, we are really focused on honoring families' unique needs, preferences, and cultural diversity. So within this program, it's a program that I'm really pleased and happy and love all the staff that we have behind us. So I'm so excited to share it. Let's see. Okay. So Advocates Adult Family Care Program, if I say AFC2, we just shorten it so we can go a little quicker too. So same thing. So the Adult Foster Care Program, Adult Family Care, is a state-funded program that allows seniors and persons with disabilities who need assistance with personal care tasks to remain in their home. So I hope not to read through all of this either, because you guys can have it there, but it is a really clear shot. So Advocates is an AFC provider since 2006. So we've been doing this for quite a few years now. So as I said, an aging parent or sons or daughters or kind of anybody, and I'll get to the eligibility in a minute. So the one part that really sets our team apart is that we have staff who come with different sets of cultural and language specific needs that most of our members meet. So we service any community. Right now, we're roughly Worcester County East, but within that, we see families who speak multiple languages and come from multiple different backgrounds. And we try to hire staff that come from those same and similar backgrounds so we can understand and experience and kind of navigate all the different medical systems or care systems or services that might be out there. So it's one of those things that I think really sets us apart, because we're really focused on how can we support your family and meet you where you're at. So our AFC team, what it consists of is a case manager, a registered nurse, supervisors, caregiver recruiters, clinicians, and a program director. We also added a few administrative roles this year, given the administrative shift that Mass Health has done. So I'll talk about that in a little bit here too. So you have a large team, you might only see 2 people in a month, but there's a large team behind us that can support. And we utilize the Autism Alliance quite a bit just for resources and guides. So they've been great partners. So the first thing that our staff, how can we help you guys? So the case managers and registered nurses, we come and do personalized and culturally sensitive services. I'm really sorry if you hear that. I live right by a hospital, so I'm so sorry. So if you hear sirens, that's where we're at. But we really do an approach to hopefully, work with you on what your family's unique needs are, your preferences and your goals about healthcare needs, services, and just kind of anything that you might face. So we provide consultations, support, and education about medical and clinical questions, emergency on-call support, and we try to connect and assist families with outside resources and agencies. So we don't necessarily do direct care. So a nurse won't do wound care or anything like that. Our case managers are there to assist, to connect you to different resources. Maybe we've heard of a great, after day program service or therapy or something that maybe you didn't hear about or that we've been connected to, or we can look and find resources for your family. That's what the case manager would do, or coordinate care with other service lines. So if we know, if we work with the Department of Developmental Services or those things, we would coordinate with them to make sure that we're not overlapping services, or if we have to ask for more services, or how can we partner together to make more services available to the member for all around better care. The other part that our nurses might do, so they won't do the hands-on care, but what we can do is check vital signs or wait. We've caught people who have early stages of pneumonia. We've sadly caught caregivers who are having a heart attack, which was really impressive timing, but we were able to assist the families and assist the members because we're more of a preventative care for the families, and we know the families that we support. So we really work to get to know you and what you guys might be facing and how can we prevent things. Or let's say you have a medication change that you're like, what do I do? Or how do I read this? Or what's the dosage? Or this doesn't seem right. Our nurses are there to help answer questions or guide you in whatever that question might be. We might not be able to answer it all, but we can definitely point you in the right direction. I might have just duplicated what's going to come up, but I get really excited about stuff. So the basics of what adult family care is. We have the member. So this is the person who will receive care. They need help with their ADLs, which we'll get into in a minute. We have a caregiver. So someone who actually provides that care to the member. A qualified setting. So it has to be a home within Massachusetts. It can't be like a hotel or something like that. We have to be able to qualify it, and it has to be its own setting. So usually we don't see a lot of hotels or like nursing homes or those kind of facilities. We can't qualify those. And then you have nurse advocates oversight, which we just kind of reviewed, but we'll get to more of that too. Okay, so kind of to break down those different tiers, right? So we talked about the member. So the member receives services, and these are the qualifications for that member. What do they need to have in order to qualify for the program? So a member must be 16 years of age or older. So our program spans from 16 to our oldest member, who actually just passed away, was 103. So we see a whole wide range of different things. So I don't limit this to just someone who's maybe a younger child or anything like that. We've seen families who support a loved one who's maybe 22, 23, who needs help with their ADL care, but we also have an elderly parent living in the home who also needs the same care. They can qualify together. And so we've actually supported a whole family with both ends of the spectrum. So that's the basic. They must live with the caregiver. So we can't have people living in different homes. It's one of the requirements that they live together in the same home. They must have a physician's order for the program. So we work and partner with your doctor to make sure the doctor is understanding that they're requesting services for AFC. Part of that is because we're a Mass Health funded program. And so Mass Health is a medical insurance. So all your medical decisions and authorizations have to go through your doctor in general. So this is where the program gets prescribed by the doctors to be able to provide care. And we help you through that process. So don't sit there and go, oh my goodness, I don't want to go and get all those forms. We help you through that.
You want to come up, unlock it? I'll take this headphones off.
I'm gonna go out.
Okay, because it's, okay, because it's good. Okay. So Sean's alone?
I'm going to keep on going. So as I said, the member must be eligible for Mass Health Standard or Common Health. Those are the two insurances from Mass Health. Within that, we also are able to provide supports through like a senior care option or a Commonwealth Care Alliance, a one care option, because those insurances have Mass Health Standard as their base. So I don't put that in there because it gets a little tricky, but senior care options could be like a Tufts or Senior Whole Health or United, but it's for the elder community, so 65 and older. But Mass Health Standard and Common Health are the things that we're really looking for. And then in order to qualify, the things that our nurses look for and assess on is a medical or mental condition that requires assistance with an activity of daily living. So there's very specific activities that Mass Health looks at. So it's toileting, bathing, dressing, eating, transferring, and ambulation. So this is the core group. I'm going to say too, I'm going to step outside of that. Many families who come to talk to us about services look at the IADLs, or instrumental activities of daily living. Those would be like banking or medication management or combing and brushing your hair, teeth, or those kind of things that really do take up a lot of time during your day and are constant. Those are not the things that would qualify for the AFC program. So these core ones that I have on the screen right now, these are the ones that Mass Health looks at. And I say that just to be really clear, because that's a really general question that we get. As much as I would love to roll those in because I know how much time and daily effort those take, it's just not part of what Mass Health qualifies. I'm going to go back real quick too. There should be a component, actually, I'll get to that in a minute, sorry. I'm going too fast. So the part that we look for the caregiver, so that was the member, this is the caregiver. The caregiver must be 18 years of or older. They must live in the home with the member. They can't be a court-appointed legal guardian. So generally, we look at this for anybody who's 16 through 18. The parents cannot be our caregiver because they're still legally bound to the child, right? Unless you have different rings, but that's just standard across the board for everybody. 16 through 18, you have parents being guardians. Once someone turns 18, if you did not go to court, then a parent could be the guardian because you didn't legally go and become the guardian of the member.
Beth, would it be okay for you to take our first question?
Sure. Yep.
So one of the attendees is asked if you could please explain ambulatory and transferring.
Sure. Yep.
Would be the previous slide. Thank you.
Sure. Yep. No, I'll answer it here just so we can make sure we're on the same train of thought. I might get to it a little bit later. So, but I want to make sure I answer it. So transferring, when we look at that, it's usually from, like, let's say you're going from the bed to a wheelchair, or you're going from a wheelchair to a couch, or you're going from, a wheelchair to a toilet or something like that. Like someone has to physically or cue you to transfer from one location to another. Okay. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect.
And the question is, can this program help with ADHD or autism?
Yes. I'm gonna do the ambulatory part too, because those are two separate ones. So
Perfect.
I'll come back to that one in a second.
Thank you, Beth.
Yep, ambulatory for going along with the ADLs is essentially walking, right? So does someone need help walking? And there's two different locations that we have to look at, inside the home and outside of the home. So we look at both of those, but they qualify as one qualifier. So if you need help inside but not outside, it wouldn't qualify. If you need help inside and help outside, it would qualify, or some combination of that. Okay, so that there's a few split ones like that that get a little tricky. And then as far as autism and how we can support that, so we do have a good amount of individuals in our program that do have a diagnosis of autism. It really depends on what their needs are, right? So the spectrum is so wide on that we can, and this is where I really picked up on the IADL part of like organizing your day, medications, and like getting together. So we've seen individuals who need help with just showering or bathing that will qualify, and I'll get to that in a minute. So it really depends on what each individual member needs for us to be able to work with you. So I would say, we do see a lot of individuals who learn the basics, right? Of like, yes, I can put my clothes on because I worked so hard in all these years to get that done. But that will disqualify in that sense for that ADL in our program, because you have to have help with that. And so it's kind of that catch-22 of, you've done so well learning those things, and yes, but so we do take a really good detailed look at what that is, so we can to get a really good picture of what's going on.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth.
Yep, no problem. I'm going to keep going with caregivers unless any others. Good. Okay. So going back to caregivers. As I was just saying, the caregiver 16 and under can't be the parent, but parents after that, if they don't go to court, can be the caregiver, a paid caregiver. And right now, caregivers cannot be spouses. So I'm actually fighting this one at the state level, because if it were me, I would want my spouse to do my care. So we're fighting that one for right now. But so those are the basic qualifications. So a caregiver could be the parent, but not legal guardian, an adult sibling, adult child or an older parent, a step parent, extended family members, so cousins, aunts, grandparents, but they have to live in the home, and a non-family member. So you might want to live with a friend who's willing to do care. We could pay that person if you're not the legal guardian. Okay. So moving on to the qualified setting. So we have two of the three already, the member, the caregiver, now the qualified setting. So it has to be a private residence in Massachusetts. Notice I hit this one home. They have to live in the same home. we do monitor that one, I promise. Home cannot be occupied by more than 3 members, regardless of the pair. So it doesn't mean we limit how many people can be in the household. It means we have to limit the people that we provide a paid service to. So for AFC, we can have 2 AFC members who are a level 2 and 1 AFC member who's a level 1. We can't have more than 2 level 2s in a home. So we could provide support to 3 individuals in one home with a combination and a variation of what that looks like. And we do have a few of those. But we also have to be mindful of if there's any like DCF involvement, or if there's private pay options, or if there's shared living, or any of those kind of paid services that are in the home. We can't have more than 3. I hope that's clear, because sometimes it gets a little muddied. So if you need clarification, let me know. So it can't be a hospital or a nursing facility, a rest home, group home, a hotel, or any of those kind of different things. So it has to be that private residence. And it has to be accessible to meet members' needs. So if a member needs wheelchair accessibility, the home has to have wheelchair accessibility. We have to be able to qualify that setting to make sure those needs are met. Okay. So I think there was, for instance, when we get into that, I had a brother taking care of his younger brother who lived on a third floor walk up in Boston, and he was wheelchair accessible, but there was no elevator, no other ways to get him. I couldn't qualify the home, but the family really needed care. Right. So it's that fine line of making sure that we can really meet those needs, and what do we need to do to get those needs met. So we've seen quite a few of interesting living situations, which is great. And then we just have to meet basic sanitary and safety regulations. We have to look and make sure that houses are up to code and that you're not having wires exposed or holes in your floor. And we recognize that people all live differently. Cultural things, come into play, and how you keep your house and those kind of different things. So it's not to like hinder that. It's really just to make sure you're meeting basic sanitary requirements and that people can live comfortably. So those are kind of the three big things. And as I talked before, you have the AFC team that's kind of behind you. So I'm going to walk through a little bit about what that process is and how we can start services. Okay. Intake and assessment. So this is our information. I'll throw it on later too. But if you were interested in services, you'd give us a call or send us an email. We would do a phone screen just to get the basics information of like where you live, insurance, because we'd want to check that just to make sure it's even an option before we would move forward. We'd hate to get through the whole process and then find out you don't have the right insurance. So all that work was for no good. So we go through that and just ask basic care questions too, to make sure that there is a good chance that we have a good feeling that yes, this is a way to go, or at least an option for you. We don't want to waste your time, but at the same time, we want to be thorough as well. So right now we have an enrollment process that can move pretty quick as long as we get the medical paperwork and all the documentation together. We've moved into a prior authorization system, which means MassHealth is they have an obligation to get us results back within 21 days after submission. Their goal is to get it back in 5 days, and they've been pretty good. So if we can gather all that paperwork and get it in on time, I've seen people move through and be ready to go within a week. I've also seen people take up to 3 months. So it really just depends on doctors and families and the pace that people want to move. And we're never there to force the program on you. So if you're just not sure or anything like that, we're not going to sit here and force you to be part of the program. It's if you qualify, you can be part of the program. If you don't want to be, that's fine too. So you should never feel forced into a program like this. So this is kind of what I just talked about, just the basics that we would gather. So once we have that basics and we have a good feeling that insurance is right, we think there's enough to at least do a really in-depth assessment, we would send our registered nurse out to your home, and they do a really good in-depth assessment. Many people are like, wow, this is long, but it's really to get a good picture of what care is needed and how we can support you. And this is also a way for us to have levels. So in AFC, there's 2 different levels. And I think I get to this in a minute here. Actually, I know I do. So I'll wait for the levels in a minute so it's clearer. So once that nurse does the assessment and determines the level, the case manager will then come out to your home and qualify your home. They'll make sure, the health and safety are ready to go. We do CORIs, we do trainings. We make sure that you understand what the program is and how we operate and how we'll come to visit your home. So we kind of get all that ready to go before we submit to MassHealth. So it's a lot of upfront work just to kind of make sure all of our ducks are in the row, make sure that you guys are supported, answer your questions, and really have a clear guideline of what we're doing. And then we work with the member or the member's primary care, get that authorization or that almost like a script for the program. We get all that paperwork ready to go and send it to MassHealth. Are there any questions? I can kind of stop. That was kind of a mouthful, so I want to make sure if there's any questions out there. Good. Okay. Perfect. All right, so eligibility levels. I knew I had a slide. So there's, like I said, there's 2 different levels in,
Yes, we
and-
did have a question that just came in.
oh, sure, yep.
Okay. It said, can you start the process before the member turns 18 and the parent is the caregiver?
We can. So we generally, we can start it whenever, I would say from, actually, let me not say that, actually. So our documentation is good for 90 days. So what we would want to do, if you are questioning or curious if this program works for you or not, we're happy to have those conversations with you and kind of talk through what it would look like, get an idea of who you are and what your needs would be. But our actual clinical documentation is only good for 90 days. So I would say if you're looking to have someone turn 18 and you're curious about the program, give us a call, maybe 6 months ahead of that 18th birthday. Have that conversation. We'll get you started. And if there's anything that either we need to adjust or change, we would take a look at that. But then we would really want to hit the 90-day mark, just so you don't have to redo all the assessments. Because if, Mass Health has really strong timelines now that we have to be able to hit those, and they won't accept anything from 91 days out. So it has to be within the 90 days. So we can get the ball rolling though, answer those questions and start to gather things, but we would want to start to submit and actually do all that assessment within the 90 days. Once they turn 18, even on their birthday, we can submit it to Mass Health. So we actually just had someone we submitted 2 weeks before their 18th birthday and it got rejected. And we're all like, what's going on? Like, they qualify, we have everything. And then we looked and we're like, oh my goodness, we totally forgot that his birthday. So it does happen, we do it, but we get really excited about it. And then we wait. So, so I don't want you guys to go through all that paperwork if you don't have to. So I would say about the 90-day mark, unless you have questions, I'm happy to have those conversations with you. So going back to the levels, so level 1 or level 2, based on that assessment that the nurses do and on the activities of daily living. And so the member must be approved by prior authorization. So this is a new system relatively for AFC. We've had it since 2019. Back prior to 2019, we could submit paperwork to Mass Health and we would get an authorization, and it would be good for as long as someone wants to be in the program or is able to be in the program. In 2019, Mass Health changed that, where now every year we have to do an authorization for services. So so we have about a year of authorization. 90 days prior to when that day will start or stop, we will resubmit, do new authorizations, do new assessments, and get all that paperwork ready to submit back to Mass Health to continue in the program. We need doctor's orders again to be part of that. So every year we're reauthorizing services, making sure people still qualify, making sure you still live in Massachusetts, all those kind of things that we would run with. So that's the bigger process right now, I would say, that a lot of individuals are facing. And the prior authorization unit also has a team of nurses that look harder at the paperwork. So they're looking at it a lot more to make sure people meet those qualifications and things like that. So it's not to scare you. It's just to kind of show that we're doing a more due diligence on the back end and looking for paperwork and things like that. But if you guys qualify and your member qualifies, we're happy to go that extra, step to make sure that we have everything ready to go and is good. So, okay. So level 1 care. Sorry, animations, they're gonna get me. So level 1 is assistance based on medical or mental health condition that requires cueing and supervision throughout just one activity of these daily living. So cueing and supervision would look like walking the member through the whole activity. So if it were to go to do bathing, right, I would have to help prompt the member, like, it's time to go shower. We're going to shower and we're going to wash our arm. We're going to wash our leg. We're going to, we're going to walk through that whole process. You need to dry off. You need to, use soap or things like that. So those would be the cueing and supervision throughout that. Part of what Mass Health does allow us to do is allow us to have the door shut partially, so people can still have that privacy and still have that autonomy but we're still kind of walking them through the process. So we all know members who might not want their mother in that room the whole time, right? Or a father in the room the whole time, or parents maybe don't want to do that either. But we also want to allow the member to have that sense of being able to do it and to have their privacy. So we can get a little creative on that around that one, to make sure that we're respecting everybody's personal choices, but they still need help and need that supervision and queuing through those activities. So level 1 is pretty straightforward on that, just queuing and supervision for 1. So along with level 1, you also have a case manager and a registered nurse who would alternate home visits for the families. So let's say a case manager would come to your home in June. Then in July, a nurse would go out. So you'd see your nurse or your case manager maybe about 6 times a year, because they're alternating the month. That's the bare minimum though. So if you guys need extra support, we're there 24/7. If you need extra home visits or need something else, we can always make those, but they're alternating those visits. With level 1, the caregiver receives a monthly tax-free stipend for the care provided. So we are paying that tax-free stipend through Mass Health to provide that care. And I'd say at level 1, so each AFC agency pays different rates. Mass Health gives a standard set, but each agency has a variation of those. I wouldn't say they're completely far off from each other, so there's not like wide gaps. But I would say level 1s are probably in the 20, I think about 22 to about 28 level. And it's a daily rate. So depending on the agency, that might sound larger than what I said. But it's a daily rate. So for that day, you would get paid that amount, and then you would multiply it for the month. So then it's tax-free. Okay. Level 2 care. Oh no. Sorry. Don't know why that was backwards. So level 2 care. It's the same qualifiers of those ADL needs, but this requires hands-on care. So you're actually putting your hands on the member for 3 of the ADLs. So you would need to qualify with, either toileting, bathing, and dressing with hands-on care, or 2 of those ADLs and a behavior. So you do 2 hands-on care and then some kind of behavior management. And I'll get to the behaviors in a minute. So you can see for level 2, the care is much more involved, more hands-on, and just much more physical. And this requires, since there's more care happening, you have nursing and case management that would do visits together every month. So you see the care team every month. They're not alternating, they're coming together, or as you're able to schedule with them. And along with this, since care is more, your stipend is going to be more. So I know agencies were ranging from about 50 to about 53, give or take here or there, in different agencies. So since that's kind of how the levels will follow, right? So level 1 is queuing and supervision through the activity. You'll have less case manager and RN oversight in your home. Not that they aren't there, just in your home. And then the stipend is lower, just for that to match that care. Level 2, more hands-on care, more nursing and case management support in your home, and then a larger tax-free stipend. So I think it's important to note too, so although the stipend is tax-free, that does not mean it's not reportable. And I say that if you're applying to like government or different services, like either food stamps or Section 8 or those kind of different things, I'm not going to do those for you, but I want to make sure that you're not getting hurt later on. So it's always good to disclose it. And I say that just because I want to make sure people are aware. There are carve outs and different things like that. And I'm not the expert on all those details. But I want people to be careful and mindful of what they're walking into when they're looking at the bigger picture for care. I'm gonna pause for just a minute because that's a bulk of like, usually we get questions around this section. If not, I'll keep going too. Okay. So actually, I might get more questions after this one. So this is the ADL list. So as I said, bathing. This is through the process in the bathing. So either talking someone through the whole process or actually helping them with the process. Dressing, we look for both upper and lower body. So that is one ADL together. So even if you needed help with the upper half, but not the bottom half, it wouldn't qualify because you have to mark them in both sections. Okay. Then eating, when we're looking at eating, it's generally the actual motion of eating. So it's not the setup. It's not having to cook for or someone else cooking for them. It's the actual part of feeding themselves. Okay, so fork into mouth, and that would be considered the ADL. Toileting is through the process. So either you're walking someone and cueing and supervising someone through the process, or you're actually doing hands-on care. Transferring in and out of the home, we talked about these two. So transferring, moving from one location to another. And then ambulation would be the mobility. So moving inside the home, walking, or out and outside as well. So you would need both of those to qualify for the ADL. Okay. Examples of behaviors are wandering. So maybe you're going from room to room without really fully understanding why I'm in that room, or not really having a purpose to go into that room, but you're kind of there. Verbally or physically abusive. So yelling, screaming, hitting, punching, kicking. Socially inappropriate behavior. This could be a whole host of things. You know, either disrobing or smearing or making loud noises or repetitive noises and those kind of different things. Something that would maybe, and this isn't an exhaustive list. So depending on what the member needs or exhibits, we can work within those. Or resisting care is one of the other behaviors. So if someone they need care, but they really don't want you to help you or help them, and they're kind of pushing you away or not allowing you to complete the task, or that would be a resisting care.
Yeah, we have another question. What if they're diabetic and need medicine with food?
Oh, that is a really good question, because I want to be really careful how I answer that. So the part through the program, medication management would be considered an IADL. So the member has to be able to take their medication independently, but that doesn't mean a caregiver can't set it up or help them do refills and things like that. So I guess it would hinge on, does the individual need help actually eating it? Does that make sense? Did I understand your question right? Where if the member's diabetic, right, or has diabetes, they have to have the medication with the food, but can they actually feed themselves the medication?
So they can feed themselves, but they can't figure the carbs that they would need and the right dosage, or give themselves the insulin. So it would be
Yeah.
recognizing how many carbs the food has,
Yeah.
what needs covering.
I would want to explore it more with you to
Okay.
get a bigger picture. My gut is saying that no, that wouldn't be a qualifier because of and this is where it gets really tricky, right? Like in my head, I'm like, that takes forever and the day, and you're doing so much work and you have to count it and prep it and all that. And I get that.
Well, and they can't eat if they don't have the insulin. It would be a matter of if
Right.
they ate without the medication, then they would be really sick.
Right. That one we would want to talk about that in depth more so. Because I hear exactly what you're saying. I get it. I think for us, if that were the only thing that would qualify them, it would be tough. But I'm guessing there is more to the picture and more to the story that would add to that. And that's the part we would want to kind of take a look at and get the full picture of how and what you're doing to actually help to do the setup and prepare and make sure that they're doing all of that. So it's a really tricky question because of just the dynamic of it. And
Right.
then I can only imagine what your day looks like with all of that prep. So I wouldn't want to just say a flippant no, because there's a lot of depth that could go into that decision.
Thank you.
So Beth, we have another question, and this is going back to the previous slide.
Sure.
And the attendee says that they've heard the member can't have food stamps with the AFC. Is this correct?
That is not correct.
Okay.
You can have food stamps and there are specific ways to apply for it. I have those documents and I can send to you, Allison and Pam, if you want to get it out to everybody, but you can definitely have AFC and food stamps.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, I do have state documents on that shows and tells you how to actually account for it. So yes, you can do it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Beth. That was from me. I appreciate it.
No problem, Kathy.
Oh, bye, Beth.
Beth.
Beth, sorry, my other
Oh.
the other person's name was Beth that left.
I'm still here. I'm good.
I know, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just
Any other questions? Okay. All right, I'm going to keep going, but if stuff pops into your mind, because those will percolate for a little bit there. So the other part with, so that was all the eligibility, right? So that is the nuts and bolts of our program. Our team is there to walk you through all that, walk you through all the technical documents and things that we would need, but that's the basics of how we qualify and what we look for. Okay, so part of with AFC, there's other Mass Health programs that are out there that you could potentially look at and either aren't the right fit for your family or maybe are a good fit, but we can't have duplication. So if Mass Health's paying for a service, they're going to go with one and not the other. You can't have both. So I just pretty much said that. So duplicative services include the PCA program. So for the personal care attendant program, they're both funded through Mass Health, both pay for care to the member for the ADLs, but have different ways that they operate, right? So AFC, you have to be together in the home, you have to live together, and it's tax-free, and there's specific ADLs. Personal care attendant is, you don't necessarily have to live together, it's taxed, and there are a few different variations on the qualifiers for the ADLs. So they're similar, but they're different all at once, but they are both funded by Mass Health. So we can't have both of them in the home. Group adopt foster care is a different type of family or foster care through the state. We generally see that in homes where maybe more like a nursing home. I know through advocates, we utilize this with our brain injury departments where individuals live in a home together and then they have subsidies through the group adopt foster care, but still funded through Mass Health. Shared living, which would be the DDS program that runs similar to AFC, but different funding sources and different requirements and things like that, but it's still a caregiver taking care of an individual in their home. And home care services with some limited exceptions. So home care services would be like cleaning services or I'm gonna totally blank, a home health aid. Those kind of different things that would come in. So because we're paying a caregiver to do care and to make sure the house has upkeep, they don't allow Mass Health to pay for extra services to do that. Although we would all love it and it would be fantastic. It's a duplication of services. There are limited things that we can work with. So like let me see the next one. Yep, I'm gonna get to that in a minute. So things like a visiting nurse. I should actually add that to the slide. So where there's nursing that does a really specialized task or something like that. Some people would consider that like if it was long-term a duplicative service. It's not, we're learning that it's not so much if it's a specialized service. So VNA is always a little bit of a tricky one and after a hospitalization and things like that. So programs that are not duplicative would be a day program. So a member can still go to a day hab or an adult day health or some other program during the day. And this is a huge benefit, I think, to allow caregivers to have a break during the day or go to work or something. Right now during COVID, this one's really hard because they either all shut down or on a limited capacity, or transportation right now has been a large issue. And really depends on what the day program is. So we do look to have day programs kind of help bridge that. It just depends on how you utilize them, but they're not duplicative. Hospice is not duplicative. So if we have members who are in our program and then move into hospice, or if we have someone who is on hospice and needs to come into our program, we can work both ways. The VNA and continuous nursing, we can use those. Continuous nursing is one of those, we're just getting clear guidance on that from the state. So that might be a misnomer, like a very misinterpreted guidance. So some families have used it. Other agencies have said no. Mass Health has said yes. The actual service line has said, we don't know. So it really, we just got clarification about a month ago that we can use this. So if you're fighting that one, let us know. But we can point you in the right direction. So that one just has a weird haze around it right now. Okay. I'm not quite sure why my slides all just went backwards. Well, we're going to go really quick through those. Let's just reset. Perfect. Okay. So that is AFC in a nutshell. That was really quick. And I went really quick through it. But this is our information as well. So if you guys have questions or want to chat, want to get an idea if this would work for your family or not, we're always happy to kind of walk you through that and answer questions and different things like that. So that's the end of my PowerPoint. I'll stop sharing if that's okay with you guys, and then open it up for whatever you guys want. Okay.
That was great. So much, such helpful information, really walk through. I think it can get really tricky when you're talking about those level 1s and level 2s.
Yeah.
And there was, even though I know it's hard to clarify them specifically, there's a reason why you do the full assessment.
Exactly.
So I understand that, but it's also nice to give some parameters around some areas. So thank you.
Sure. Yep. No problem.
Not sure if anybody has any more questions this evening. You got Beth. Roll those questions if you have them. There we go. Come on in. You can unmute.
I have a question about dressing. So my son has an SMO on his shoe and cannot tie his shoes himself. He can totally do upper body, but couldn't do buttons if it was a button shirt. But so we just never wear buttons. But if he couldn't use anything like that, would that help him qualify, or is that?
Right. So buttons and zippers don't qualify either, because the general thought process is that most people don't know how to use buttons or zippers, which is kind of a far-fetched moment because, we'll be working on that one too. So I think the part with the shoes, though, that one would definitely, that is definitely something that would qualify, it would be something that we would look at. So the upper and the lower body is really a tricky one, right? Because we've had, just for an example, we've had someone who is a paraplegic and they can do everything upper body, but nothing lower body, just given where their needs are at. And that person didn't qualify for that one specific thing. So I think for us, it's a bigger picture of, is there things that you're doing that maybe you don't realize? And I say that because many parents from my experience, go into like complete, just like autopilot. We do this, we go here, we lay it out, we do this, we're checking if it's weather appropriate, if it's on backwards, inside out, if it's clean, all those things tell a story of what someone needs and wants, right? We don't want people walking out in the middle of like a -degree day in shorts and a t-shirt. And we know what happens. We know I want to wear shorts. Let's do this. So we would really want to take a look at the full picture of what that is. So even if it's just buttons or zippers, there might be more to the story that we would want to flesh out. But definitely the shoes and that extra assistance, that would be something that would at least qualify for the bottom part. We would just have to take a look at the top part. Yep. So these are the tricky, minute things that either drive you nuts because you're like, there's so much more to the story that you don't understand, but it doesn't fit into this weird little niche. And so that's the part we kind of work with, and we try to work the gray areas as much as we can while still being in compliance.
Well said.
Thank you.
So our next question is, hi, would the time a member was qualified for PCA impact their FAC? And the fact that Mass Health has been reducing the requested hours?
I just want to make sure I read that right. It's in the chat, right?
Yes.
I
Time
think it's
member.
impact their AFC. I think that's just the typo.
Right,
Oh.
yeah.
I didn't know. I thought, my gosh, I don't know what FAC is. I'm not.
Right. So I'm gonna take a guess at what you're trying to ask. So if it's if I'm not answering the right question, either come and talk to me. But so what I'm guessing is maybe you went with AFC to see if you were qualified for PCA. You got certain hours at PCA and were approved and everything like that. But then let's say maybe PCA isn't working, or you want to explore AFC or something like that. So sorry, 1 second. Make sure I can answer your question. So what happened on the back end when we have the prior authorization right now? So Mass Health has this large company called Optum. Optum houses all the PCAs authorizations, all of the AFC authorizations. They house all of that together, so they can see when there's an AFC authorization, and they can see when there's a PCA authorization. So on the back end, you can see that. So if you started with a PCA agency, you have all the right in the world to explore AFC. Like, you can look, you can see if that's a better fit. If it works better for your family, you can take a look at that. If you started in PCA, you're getting paid through PCA and all those things, that's totally fine. But what we would need to do for AFC, we can get you enrolled. We can do all that process. We can do everything up until pay you and get the authorization part. So what we do on the back end of that is you can have 2 open authorizations. What we would want to do as an AFC agency is work with your PCA agency, because essentially the PCA agency could stop on June 15th. AFC can start June 16th. If we both have those authorizations, it's just on the responsibility of the agency to stop and start those things. But we all, and like through advocates, we require a letter from the families making their determination, like, we would like to go this way. So we have a letter from the family. We work with that PCA agency and make sure they've stopped all the billing. And so PCAs can't start to claim different claims on that once we've stopped it. So we actually have a much better way to track it right now and to see it. With that being said, we've had people explore both at the same time to kind of see. Some people have really high amounts of PCA hours, and I will tell you, if you have a high amount, I might direct you that way. Like, that might be a better option for you. Or AFC might be better because you are living together, it's tax-free, and you have that oversight, like, of the nursing and the case management coming to your home. PCA, you don't have that necessarily. So we would really want to take a look at what's the best fit for your family. I do know PCA had a lot of shifts over this past year too. And so they are tightening up on their on their levels and their hours and all those kind of different things. Kind of like what AFC had happened to us too, though. So our nursing component for the authorizations are looking much more closely at that paperwork and the need of the individual. So I can't really tell you which one's better or best. It's really dependent on the member. But the two can operate pretty simultaneously. You can have two open authorizations for both, but you would have to choose one. So before, what happened was we had no idea if PCA was actually in the picture. And so you could be billing PCA and we could be billing AFC and we'd all get happy and you'll get lots of money. And then all of a sudden the person who came in second got audited and now it was all that money back. And then we would probably come to the family and say, you knew this.
Oh, shucks. Yeah, that's.
You need- So I say that we've learned from those kind of horror stories, right? So this process is a fine tune. And with the authorizations open right now, it actually helps us see. So we're not ultimately hurting families down the road if some oversight happened. We've had people say, like, I thought that was closed. Like, I had no idea. And we're still getting funds and things like that. So it's much clearer now and we can operate a little clearer, which is, for the good or bad, whichever way you want to look at it.
So Monier, so thank you very much. And she would like to make an appointment with you, Beth, to talk about the case.
Sure. Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Monier. Yes.
Mhm.
So I have a question for you. This is a general question.
Mhm.
Over the years, because the PCA, the adult family care foster started in 2006, right? So how has the incidence in autism and the rise in autism and potentially the amount of people that are accessing this benefit with autism, how has that impacted the program, any type of qualifications for the program? Have you seen any shifts, any considerations? Because as we both know, autism does have physical components to it, but it has a tremendous amount of behavioral components that do impact that person's ability to be independent and self-attentive to.
Yep.
So have you seen a shift in some, and if you have, how would people with autism been able to access that shift?
Yeah,
That's a question.
it's a really good question.
Sorry.
So yes, I've seen kind of all of that.
Okay.
I would say there's a few different things at play. So my brain's trying to think of which one to start with. So over the years, we have seen, so the history of AFC, maybe I'll give you a very history lesson. AFC started off to keep elders out of nursing homes, right?
Right.
So that is
Mhm.
how AFC started. The base
Right.
of the program was that.
Right.
Then 2007, the state, and it was all out of home placement, right? So there was no family members who could be caregivers.
Okay.
2007, state opened that up. Family members could become caregivers. That opened, I would say, Pandora's box almost, because you
Okay.
have so many people who now qualify because you're not trying to find outside of your home.
Sure.
And that also opens up the eligibility of who could actually access this.
Sure.
And so that was one of the first major bumps where you started to see a lot of individuals with a diagnosis of autism start to really utilize that, because the needs of like toileting, bathing, dressing, all of those things, while they are very true for elders, are also very true for this population in some regard.
Right. Right.
So as this population started to grow and started to expand, and the need was really there, and just what you said, that ability to make the decision to do it or not do it, how to utilize the day, all those things that maybe aren't the physical impact, but the cognition impact of what that looks like started to become a talking point. So I would say we had a regulation change in 2017 and then 2019. And at every point in that, the conversation was, what about these members? What can we do to either expand it, or what does that look like? What would the qualifiers be? I think depending on who's on this call, you've heard a lot of like a level 3. Is there a level 3 in AFC that would be able to really take into consideration that mental component of, or like cognition to be able to actually do that? That's not there. It has been discussed. We are still pushing for it. We are still pushing for an expanded kind of definition of what that is. So I wouldn't say we're there yet.
Yeah.
The state is always working on that assessment tool, always trying to take a look at what that is. And that's still in process. That's still in play, but there is still definitely a talk about it. But I think the other part to keep in mind is that Mass Health is a medical insurance.
Right.
So they're looking at like, we're an insurance-based medical model. How does that fit into that? Right. So there's kind of that rub. And I think they're also a little afraid of, if that happens, is the program going to triple in size then? Like,
Sure. Right,
what does
right.
that look
Yeah.
like, right?
Yeah.
So it is definitely there. It is definitely in the minds of everybody. We see it day in and day out.
Right.
You know, and it breaks our heart to see someone who has huge amounts of like behavioral component needs or anything like that, but they can still get dressed and go to the bathroom and walk and get in and on the bed. Like they can still do those basic functions, but everything else is so impacted.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so that's the fight right now. So I would say, you know, we've moved the dial,
Mhm.
but we're not there yet.
Yeah, no, thank you for answering that. Appreciate it. It's a great answer.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all so very, very much. And thank you, Beth, for your wonderful presentation. It was extremely helpful. And I know that some of our friends that joined us tonight will be calling you or contacting you to get some more information. Thank you all so
Sure.
very much. Have a great night.